Hello, everyone, and welcome to the College of Law and Centre for Legal Innovation's New Law Careers Summit 2022. I am absolutely delighted to bring this fabulous session to you, our last session of our two-day event on where do I start on my new law career journey, and even more excited to introduce you to our fabulous panelists, which I'm going to do in just 1 second. My name is Terry Modishead. I'm the Executive Director of the Centre for Legal Innovation at the College of Law. So with all of that being said, I'm going to do a quick intro of our amazing panel because they're going to tell you all about their new law career journey in just a second. But I did want to welcome Minnie Hannaford, who is an associate with Advanced Delivery Services at Ashurst Advanced at Ashurst. Hi, Minnie. Good to see you. Matt Hollings, who's the Head of Business Development at Sky Discovery. Hello, Matt. Rose Inglis, who is the founder of Rose Tinted Law. Hi, Rose. Good to see you. And last but certainly not least, Christine Zong, who is the co-founder and managing director of Bottle and is also on the CLI Emerging Leaders Advisory Board. Hi, Christine. How are you? All good. So let's kick off with our first question, and I'm sure it's the one that everyone is looking forward to as well, which is a brief intro about each of you, but I think particularly in terms of that intro, how you have come to your new law career as well. So Minnie, you get to kick us off on that one. Tell us your story.
Hi, everyone, and thanks so much, Terry. My name is Minnie Hannaford, and I'm an associate at Ashurst Advance. Ashurst Advance is a new law division of global law firm Ashurst. We're all about leveraging the advancements in processes and technology and people to see how best we can really deliver a legal service. I have to say it's pretty incredible to work in this space within quite a large organisation, and I'm sure that throughout the course of this summit you've heard of perhaps different careers and different opportunities that might make up different facets of that sort of new law delivery. Previously, my practice has been as a commercial litigation lawyer, primarily with a focus on complex disputes. And that's included some regulatory work as well. So I guess what's unique about my current role is that I am still a practicing lawyer. I still practice every day, but that has taken a bit of a different focus recently. So I'm sure we'll discuss all of that today, but safe to say that my entry to the legal profession has, until recently, followed a fairly traditional trajectory or traditional path. And so I'm really excited to be on this panel and talk to you all today about what that new law career progress has started out for me, given that I'm sort of relatively new to it.
Minnie, do you kind of consider your role to be a bit of a hybrid role? Yeah. So are you good with that term? Because it's used a lot, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm definitely finding that, or a blended role I'm hearing a lot of. But that's definitely the space I'm feeling more comfortable in, definitely.
Comfortable is good, exhausted is not good. So, you know.
I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Oh, we will, yeah. So Matt, tell us your story.
Thanks, Terry. So as you pointed out, I'm the Head of Business Development at Sky Discovery, and we're a specialist e-discovery technology and consulting business. I've been in the e-discovery space for the better part of 8 years now, and prior to that was a practicing litigator in a large national firm, and I spent a little bit of time in-house on secondment doing some litigious work for one of our big banks. So I think in total probably a real lawyer, as it was defined back then, maybe just over 3 years. So the work I do now, whilst I maintain my practicing certificate, is really not what was traditionally defined as legal work, and certainly not what I used to do. My entire focus now is educating lawyers on what is possible through the use of e-discovery technologies on their large disputes, regulatory responses, and investigations. So it's a role that for me has evolved tremendously over the last 8 years, and I have no doubt will continue to do so as time progresses and at a far more rapid rate. But it's certainly been tremendous way to leverage not only my legal degree, but also the practical legal experience I gained in that short time in a slightly different way.
Fantastic. And hold some of those thoughts, because we're definitely going to come back and explore some of them. So Rose, let me jump to you. Tell us your story.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Rose Inglis. So I graduated in 2011 and started off my career as a lawyer. And early on in my career, I moved to London, which was a very transformative experience for me. And then 4.5 years later, I returned home to Australia with a master's, a husband, all new global friendship network, and a whole new law career journey. So my new law journey commenced in 2016 when I did my master's. So I found myself at a natural career break, and I hadn't quite found my place in law. And I did my master's. I did an LLM at University College of London, thinking I would end up in academia or something. But the master's actually served as a really important career break for me because I hadn't quite found my niche. And so I really took that time to explore as many new ideas and meet as many different people as possible throughout that time. So I gained a global perspective, and I really my eyes were open to all these amazing changes that were happening throughout the innovation and legal technology industries. And I really was super excited by what I saw. So since then, I have traversed many different parts of the new law space, and recently, many of them in legal education and working with early career legal professionals. So today I have 2 roles that didn't exist 2 years ago. One that was created for me, which is the head of community education and engagement at Legally Yours, which is an online platform for progressive Australian lawyers. And the other role is one that I've created for myself, which is the founder of Rose Tinted Law.
Fantastic. And I see a theme kind of emerging here as well about, having that eye to the global perspective, because some of what we're going to be talking about today is developing at different speeds or evolving at different speeds in different places, but also, I guess, being open to change. So we're going to explore some more of those. But first, Christine, we have to ask you your story too.
Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Christine. I just want to quickly say right off the bat, I am recovering from COVID, so apologies if you hear me sniffling or coughing. I am okay, but yes, still a bit unwell. I am one of the co-founders of Bottle, which stands for Bot Law. We are a legal tech ed startup, and essentially we're all passionate about empowering and upskilling law students and incoming legal professionals so that they can become innovators in the industry. So that means I'm involved in kind of setting up legal education programs such as our Law Tech Clinic, competitions, workshops, seminars with various universities and law firms. And essentially our goal is to, raise awareness about legal tech and legal tech careers, and also give students practical opportunities to get involved in real legal tech projects. So we oversee students as they kind of receive a project brief from an actual firm and practicing lawyers, and then we'll oversee them and give them the tools and knowledge to develop legal tech solutions such as no-code apps. And then hopefully the aim is that those apps solve the real life legal issue, and then that app gets deployed in the law firm. So that's what I'm passionate about, and that's what I'm doing with Bottle. At the same time, I'm also a penultimate year Bachelor of Law and Arts student at Monash. So shout out to any Monash law students if you're on the line as well. Hello. So yes, that means I haven't ever been a practicing lawyer before. Prior to Bottle, I've had some experience in commercial law. I was a paralegal at Clayton Utz for about 1.5 years, had some experience in commercial law, employment law. I've worked a little bit briefly in a CLC. So yep, I've been lucky to have the best of both worlds in terms of getting experience in black letter law, but also getting experience with Bottle. So yeah,
the Centre, thank you. And the Centre has been so fortunate to be able to work with the bottlers, as I call them. I'm not sure if anyone else is allowed to call them the bottlers, but they're really doing some amazing work in bridging that gap between law school and and practice or early entry career professional. So fabulous stuff there. All of you have, from what you've been speaking about, have all kind of come to where you are now based on different experiences. And I want to get into how you took your first steps, but I want to jump back a step before we do that and kind of understand, and particularly for folks that are listening or watching right now, to understand what your aha moment was, or however you labeled that. But whether there was a thing or a collection of things perhaps that brought you to the point of saying, okay, this practicing law, because that's where you all started. Christine, you will very soon. This is not what I want to do. So what was it that led you to that decision or that kind of moment? And then you thought about doing something different, and how you started on doing something different, as I say, we'll get to. But Matt, let me start with that question to you first, if I may.
Yeah, look, my moment probably wasn't so much of finding something else that I thought, aha, that's exactly what I want to do, but more so came to the realization that what I was presently doing wasn't what I wanted to be doing in 10 years time or 15 years time. I think I didn't enjoy the area of law that I was in and the way in which we were practicing as much as I thought I might. And it took me some time to sort of look to other options. 8 years ago, there really wasn't many other definitions of success or visibility on the application, the successful application of a legal degree in a way that wasn't get a job as a clerk, get, admitted as a solicitor, work hard, progress, become a partner. That was sort of a very straight linear arrow that defined success within the legal community. And many of these new law careers were around at that time, but they certainly weren't the norm. There wasn't a Centre for Legal Innovation. There wasn't that spotlight or that visibility being placed upon those. So for me, I couldn't really see too many other options. So I actually intended to sort of pursue life at perhaps another firm or in-house was my initial sort of response. And I happened to sort of come across an alternative legal services provider who was recruiting for a business development manager role. And I really sort of tossed and turned about it for quite some time, because in my mind, I was really programmed into, well, isn't this going to be failure? Isn't this you not being successful in the law because you're effectively stepping away from that very rigid definition? I had at the time been wrestling with whether I was liking it, and had had many conversations with a lot of people, including peers who sort of were in similar mindsets to me and weren't particularly interested in perhaps making that transition outward. And particularly when I floated the idea of becoming a business development manager with some of my colleagues, there was a bit of incredulity on a lot of people's faces going, well, what, you're a madman. Like, aren't you just throwing away, 5-year degree, 12 months of postgraduate study, and now sort of 3 to 4 years of investment? But I have, a great friend and family network outside of the law who don't have that same sort of preconceived notion, and were really supportive in terms of pushing me to take that jump and reminding me that I could go back. Like, there's really nothing, one of the concerns I think I held at the time was, oh, what if I don't like this head of BD role? Can I go back to the law? That's a two-way door that I've come to appreciate. As a lot of people now have gone, oh, we'd love to have you back in the firm. Whereas I, at the time, I'd really thought that perhaps it was, once you leave, that, the door's shut forever. So I really sort of came to the point of going, I need to make a change. Is a change outside of the true or the preconceived notion of success possible? And obviously with some external support, I was motivated enough to make that jump. And also what I really sort of sealed the deal for me in terms of making the shift was the interview process. And my boss at the time, or who became my boss, really said to me that we're what you're looking for here. You understand the problem that we are solving better than anybody. And really throughout the interview process and my research, I realized that this organization did have those solutions and I wanted to know about them. Had I known about them, I could have applied them or used them. So I was really motivated to be like, I have some value to add here. My experience as a lawyer will be able to assist me in terms of being empathetic and understanding of those challenges and hopefully guide who would be my future clients towards a solution.
Huge number of great points there, but I'm going to pull out a few that really resonated as you were speaking, and that's kind of going out of industry basically to look and see what people are doing and kind of bringing that kind of ideas and experience into your own frame of reference. But I think also that, you know, knowing that in doing what you're doing, you're kind of learning different skills, which at the moment are very much on the table for what the legal industry is needing, which is people thinking differently and innovatively and being willing to try different things. So really fabulous points there. Rose, let me jump to you, because I know you said in the intro that, you know, one of the things that you did was look at a whole bunch of different options. And it sounds almost like you've pulled some of those threads together, and being able to do that was your aha moment. But tell us about it.
Yes. So firstly, I love this question. And I've really enjoyed thinking about which are my aha moments. And I realized I've had 3 significant ones. So the first one, when I was halfway through my double degree, so 2.5 years into 5 years, and I realized I was doing my prep for the seasonal clerkships, and I was going to the events, and I was doing all the things, and I just realized I don't want to be a corporate or commercial lawyer, and I really didn't know where that left me. But I started, once I was honest with myself about that, and I remained kind of confident that my passion for the law, and I remained optimistic that that would kind of lead me to a good place, it actually made identifying the opportunities that I wasn't interested in and that were and weren't relevant to me a lot easier. So once I came to that, which was hard, but again, I sought counsel from, you know, my friends and family who have nothing to do with the law, and I didn't come from a family of lawyers, so I kind of didn't have that. My eyes were open to a lot of different opportunities. The second aha moment was in London, and I had the very good fortune of crossing paths with 2 different rock stars of the legal innovation space. The first one was Erica Bagano, who works now at Simmons Wavelength, and she introduced me to Justin North, who's now at Moray. So, and this was really at the beginning of my new law career journey. I connected with both of them over a coffee chat, and my friendship with each of them grew organically. And what they both taught me was that the rules aren't rigid, and the conventions that we kind of have in our head, or that we've been taught about where a career and what law and what a successful, you know, legal career looks like, just doesn't exist. And there is room to carve your own unique niche. And you know, arriving with your authentic self and being really generous and kind and forward thinking and really running your own race can lead to huge success. So, you know, they've both given me a lot of confidence moving forwards in my career and helping me to carve out my niche. And they really influence how I show up today in my new law journey, I guess. And the third one is, my third aha moment is actually right now, or it kind of started about a month ago, and I'm in the thick of things now. And it's because I'm turning my passion project, Rose Tinted Law, into a business. And I'm focusing on creating professional development opportunities for curious and open-minded early career legal professionals. Because I've just realized the time's now. The same rules don't exist. The corner office doesn't exist. We've got, like, because of, you know, technology, we can create our own networks, and we've got access to, like, the technologies that we need. And I've got the confidence now and the skills to do all of this. So while I kind of imagine doing all of these things later on down the track, like in 5 years time, a month ago, I was just like, nope, the time's now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Fantastic.
it's an
So it's-
ongoing process.
yeah, and I think that's the thing, and it's certainly the thing that's come through all the sessions in the summit, that a lot of the new law careers are actually still evolving. So and you've mentioned all of that at the beginning as well, and so it's kind of like you have your aha moment and you go into what looks like a fairly settled career at the moment, but there's whole new ones evolving, and your own new law careers are evolving. So
Absolutely.
certainly a great time to be doing what you're doing. Minnie, let me ask the same question of you as well, because I know that you've also made the change relatively recently. So kind of what moved you in the direction that you're now have now taken?
Yeah, look, it's just listening to both Rose and Matt, it's quite interesting to hear from experiences that I guess are a little bit more or further progressed than mine in new law. Terry, you mentioned that my sort of change has been quite recent, but I actually don't think my aha moments or light bulb moments are that new or recent, and I wonder if that experience is perhaps common amongst the attendees here. So I definitely can't, in thinking about this question, I definitely can't, despite my attempts, really sort of reduce it down to one moment. But I think it's in fact been a career in a practice that hasn't always felt right. It doesn't feel quite right for me, and I've recently realised that it's actually not the practice of law that is not right for me, but the way in which we do that. And I said it in my introduction before, but the way in which we actually use innovation to deliver that legal service is what I think was lacking in my previous life, I guess, if I can say that. So that feeling of not quite fitting in as a litigation lawyer, and perhaps even more generally as a lawyer in private practice, I think it's really common to be told that partnership is that thing to strive for, or that corner office with that heralded sort of view of the CBD are all those key sort of token examples of success.
Yeah,
and I knew fairly on that definition didn't really align with me. That wasn't something that I had sort of that tunnel vision focus on, whereas a lot of my colleagues, especially early on, I definitely felt that they did. And I think for a few years, for me personally, it was quite jarring, that feeling of, oh, I'm not quite where I think I should be, or I'm not quite where my colleagues are, or I'm seeing people sort of develop in different ways. And for so long, that was quite a jarring sort of experience for me. And that I guess that conflict between what type of lawyer am I versus what type of lawyer should I be, or do people want me to be, and that sort of impression, I guess. And over the course of about 5 years of practice, which again is not common in the profession, that's led to an incredible amount of self-doubt. And it's only been sort of in the last, I guess, 12 to 18 months that I've really been able to flex that other part of my personality and let that sort of shine in my work. And it's funny because it actually hasn't come through in my legal practice necessarily. It's been in other networks and other communities that I've been involved in, and I'm feeling a lot more balanced now. I'm feeling a lot more myself, and I think when I think about sort of my career and the change that's occurred in the last sort of 6 months, I've reflected in thinking that I am actually quite a free thinker. I'm the person that will sort of blurt out a pretty sort of big idea or obscene idea, and maybe needs to sort of think more about the planning and the implementation of things. But it's funny that in just a few short years, how much of that was perhaps suppressed, or not able to sort of be nurtured and developed. And so it's really incredible for me, I think, when I think about it, since my change and since starting at Ashurst, how much of that side of my skills and my interests and my personality, frankly, has been able to sort of come out in my work. And I have to say that's an incredibly refreshing feeling. If there's any attendees on this in this session that are feeling a bit sort of boxed in and questioning that, I would really challenge you to sort of look elsewhere, like Matt said and like Rose said, about and challenge yourself on that. Don't sort of force yourself down this line of this is what a successful lawyer or a litigation lawyer or what type of lawyer it is should look like, because as we keep saying, that's changing, that's taking shape in different forms, and it will continue to do so.
Yeah, and the thread that's running through all of your kind of stories is that you still love the law. You still want to be associated with the law, and that self-doubt, Minnie, I'm sure, came from a mindset that you had, that there is no reason why you'd have a different mindset. It's only when you actually force yourself to kind of think differently, which is true for you, Matt and Rose, I think as well, that things just opened up. I think too, there's often a lot of tea leaves along the way that collect in a cup, and at the time you're not really cognizant of them, but when you actually stop and take a deep breath and look at it, it's like, oh wow, okay, this is what it's actually telling me. And that almost seems a little of background to your story as well, Minnie.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of it's interesting to think about too, that I maybe haven't realized all of that just yet, and it's only in being sort of given some incredible opportunities along the way that I've realized those things. But no, definitely I don't know if it's ever been one significant moment or a couple of significant moments, but instead warming up to a career that or trying to settle into a career that hasn't necessarily aligned with your core values and your personal sort of stake in things. And I think that's actually quite important as new law career lawyers or legal professionals. That's something that we should really be putting at the heart of what we do and how we do it. If how we're working or where we're aiming to work doesn't actually align with your core values, it's that friction is just harder to sort of void, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Christine, as you listen to these journeys, and given where you are in your journey, what do you take away from that specific to you being a penultimate year law student?
Yeah, it definitely resonates. Everything everyone has said so far resonates with me as well. And this kind of conversation is reminding me of what a fellow legal tech and ops colleague, David Curtin, who is the founder of Front Foot Law. I was having a chat with him, I don't even know, I lose track of time, but maybe a year or so ago. And he said to me that when he was practicing law, he felt like he was a square shape trying to fit in a square mold. And he felt like he never really fit in. He could kind of squeeze through and he could get by, but it didn't really fit 100% right. And that's what led him to his new law career. And that was a semi-aha moment for me, because he had perfectly kind of described how I felt as a law student, but I'd never really admitted it to myself or acknowledged it, because, I mean, we all have imposter syndrome anyway. I just thought everyone felt like a bit odd and left out and not completely fitting in, but that really resonated with me. In terms of an aha moment, I guess my moment is maybe slightly different to all the other panelists, in the sense that I haven't been a practicing lawyer before, so it hasn't been mid-practice, but it has been kind of through practical legal assistant, paralegal experiences in law firms. Definitely wasn't all the glitz and glamour that I expected working as a paralegal. I think everyone can admit that paralegals often get the more laborious, mundane, human reliant jobs to do. So when I started getting experience in the legal industry, I noticed that my peers, they were increasingly interested in the legal subject matter. So they would go up to lawyers and say, oh, it's so interesting that, we're advising on this issue. Can you explain what this is about? Or, oh, I heard that this new case was passed down, or that there's these new reforms going on. That's so interesting. And they'd go down that rabbit hole. Whereas I thought that was interesting, but I would still be stuck at step one, which was, I can't believe this is my job, that I have to sort through all these documents. Surely there's a system that does this already. Or I would still be shocked that, you know, I'm getting paid X dollars an hour to spend 5 hours just manually archiving these documents. And like the firm is happy with that and no one cares. And that's just my job. And so I saw firsthand how taxing and burdensome that can be on the legal support staff, so paralegals, legal secretaries, and lawyers themselves. And then I noticed firsthand how that kind of had an adverse effect on the quality of the legal services that were being provided. No doubt, like, of course, the legal advice was still excellent. I'm not going to step on any law firms that I worked for, but I did notice that lawyers were spending a lot more time, you know, looking through the work that we did or making sure that we did everything correctly, instead of spending more kind of beneficial time doing, you know, complex legal research or providing legal advice. So that was kind of where I was like, okay, it seems like I'm not just interested in the legal subject matter, I'm also interested in thinking about how we work, and I want to change how we work because I'm seeing firsthand how it can negatively impact the quality of the services we're giving. So that's where I realized, okay, maybe I don't just want to be a black letter lawyer, maybe I want to get involved in this legal tech thing, and maybe that's where my passions lie as well. So that's what led me to where I am today.
But also thinking differently about how those problems could be solved, you know, and I guess also having you know, having the self-confidence to go and do something about that, which you've done obviously through Bottle, but some folks that are working now may also be able to do that by taking those solutions to the folks that they're working with. So yeah, some great, wonderful advice there as well. Matt, I wanted to come to you in a way and build on what we've been saying, and you've touched on this already, but maybe looking at this even more broadly. If you've worked out that you're a square peg in a round hole, probably at some point you might be panicking, or you might be thinking, and Minnie's touched on this already, oh, why am I thinking this way and everyone thinks differently? What's the very next step that you do? So you're there, you've had your aha moment, for better or for worse, and you've said, okay, I need to do something about this. What do you do? Where do you start?
Look, I think you've got to do something. Like I spent a lot of time saying that I needed to change, but not actually taking any meaningful steps to unpacking that. And if I reflect on it now, I think I did this subconsciously in terms of selecting the role that I did, but I really enjoyed my time in-house. It was less practical law, more client management, understanding client motivators and drivers, which are, you know, and the challenges that they're facing, which are more business development orientated tasks. They form a large part of what I do now day to day. So, you know, when I was looking to make the change and searching for that, and I selected this business development role, the reason I applied was simply because I saw it as a good alignment of not only the practical legal skill set that I had, but focused more on the elements of my current job that I liked. And prior to that, I worked in, you know, retail technology sales at Harvey Norman as a kid, working for my old man, and elements of that were really fun and exciting. You know, the sales process, when you get it right, when you really truly solve somebody's problem, there's nothing better than, you know, wrinkling people's brains and going, what, that's actually possible. So I think in a lot of ways I didn't do it deliberately, but if I had my time again and I was going to make another shift in my career, I'd really look to what don't I like, which is an important component, so you can steer away from perhaps some organizations that are doing similar things just in a different package, and focus on what you do like, and then seek out opportunities that align with that experience, that align with those passions or those interests. And I think that'll go a long way to setting you up for success in terms of building a career. And thankfully now there's just so much more visibility. Like making the shift now, and maybe it's because I've done it already, but there are so many more options, and they're only going to grow. And that if you're not liking what you're doing, it's so much easier than it ever was to go and have a look There are myriad of opportunities and roles popping up, and it's about just aligning them. I think, as Minnie said, to your values, to the things you like doing. You spend a lot of time at work, or at least I do, and it's important that you enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's probably having those cups of coffee that Rose was referring to earlier, right, with various people and connecting in various ways to various networks with people doing things differently. And I guess, Christine, to some extent, that's one of the roles that Bottle fills as well, right, providing that network. Minnie, what are your thoughts on that? Should you kind of be doing almost a pros and cons list, or do you kind of, is the next step saying, well, these are the things I don't like, these are the things that I want to do? How did you kind of bring all of that together?
Yeah, I think, perhaps I didn't have a physical pros and cons list, but that's definitely how I approached my thinking around it, is what are the elements of not necessarily the role I'm in, but my contribution and the work that I do, that I love, that I'm inspired by, that push me along, and what are the things that I'm feeling are holding me back or not getting me to where I want to, where I eventually want to be. It's when I started sort of becoming more aware of that difference I was feeling. One of the things that I did do was actually start pretty organically just developing and building my network of peers. So, where you go through law school for, say, 3 to 5 years and you stick with your cohort and you may or may not, rely on them in your career later on, or you start off as a grad in a firm and you stay with those people for a couple of years and eventually go your separate, whatever sort of dynamic that looks like. Sometimes it's actually quite good to break away from that and build your network outside of your direct colleagues. And so that's something that I started doing with the Law Society, with other networks and committee organisations in the legal space and in the profession, and really started sort of curating, I guess, my LinkedIn to the types of careers, not that I necessarily could name them or knew what they were, but people in the profession that were doing really incredible things and really different things. And it's funny, and I encourage people to use LinkedIn in that way, because it's when you're seeing that kind of information all the time, it's really hard not to want to be a part of that group, and not want to sort of level up to that. And just in terms of, I guess, and maybe it was Rose that was saying earlier about, reaching out to people. And I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but Matt was actually somebody that I reached out to, probably maybe 8 to 10 months ago. And I sort of hauled him under the pretense of having sort of a committee-esque discussion. And he really was one of the only people in sort of my periphery or my circle that I knew was doing something different and had a similar experience in terms of not sure if practice was suited, but he was one of the people that was actually in my periphery to know, well, he's actually really loving what he's doing. Is very different, and it is in a BD role, but and I was really, really interested in actually just engaging with somebody that's made that transition, to know that it was almost safe to do so, that it wasn't going to be like the biggest mistake and something that I'd regret. And so through conversations like that, I think you start building a confidence in, what, I actually can't fail. You can always lean back on your law degree. You can always lean back on some practicing experience, but it's really the opportunity to take that jump. And albeit, I'll say, I am still practicing, so my jump perhaps hasn't been as great as others, but I think it's trusting in yourself that you can do it, that there are opportunities out there, and more importantly, that there are people that will champion you along the way. And my God, that makes that decision making so much easier, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. And I want to pick up one of the things that you said there, because it's a perfect segue to a question that I want to ask Rose, which was, you can't fail. But I actually think if you do, that's okay. And so, Rose, the question that I wanted to ask you, because it's come up a few times here, is kind of like, how do you get out of that mindset? Like, how do you redefine success, or do you even think about success? Do you think about, let me fail on a whole bunch of stuff because I'll learn more from that? What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting because I think it's like, so the one thing that I had to do very early on in my career, when I realized I wasn't going to be a commercial lawyer, and an alternative career, in my view, like as far as I knew, was like probably being in academia or going into government or research or something. I ended up going in-house in government initially. But when I had that first aha moment, I really spent a lot of time while I figured out what my dream role was, or where I was even going to start my career. I started thinking about, what are my values and what are my goals and what do I actually want to do, and how can what do I value in life? What do I want to do? How can I align my professional ambitions and my personal growth? And so what I did was I imagined my life in 20 years' time, and looking back, and I was like, what did I want to see? And I realized I wanted to live internationally. I knew one day I wanted to, run my own show, have my own business. And so I knew I needed to have a diverse skill set to get there. I knew ongoing professional development was always going to be important to me to satisfy my curious mind and open up new opportunities for me. So with that in mind, I was confident that completing my legal qualifications would help me succeed down that path. And then it also provided me with my own decision-making framework moving forwards. And I always come back to kind of iterate these values and my goals accordingly. And my main values, they've always stayed the same. My goals just continually change, and they always come back to them. It's never changed. So like, for example, when I moved to London, I wanted to make new friends, travel, and progress my career. So it was easy to decide, when I got the opportunity to do my master's, and when I was hustling to get my first job in London, like, I just knew it's what I had to do. And it's why I went there. So, it takes, like, it's harder to do that. It's hard. It's a lot easier to follow the conventional path. And it's a lot harder to kind of, have that introspection and figure out, what are your values? What do you want to do? What does success look like for you? And sometimes you do, like, I have had to, I'm making a leap of faith now with what I'm doing, but I have trust in the process, and I have trust in my ability. I have trust that there's a niche there. I know what, and that just happens over time. And I just am a big believer, kind of what Matt and Minnie were saying as well, that magic happens outside your comfort zone, and you've got to create your own luck.
Absolutely.
So and you're the one where that comes from. It doesn't happen from anyone else. And so I think that's real, that kind of that curiosity, but also that patience with yourself, and ready to do that work will really lead you in good stead in the new law career space. Because the reality is, a lot of jobs that we're all going to have in 2 years don't exist yet. So we've got to have some framework to work from. It starts with ourselves.
And you're absolutely right. It's almost like going back to basics and knowing yourself really well, and knowing your strengths, and focusing on building those strengths and looking for where you can find that alignment. Totally. I've always found in my career that the most unhappy I have been is when there has been a misalignment of those things, the things that matter to me, and where I've been working in a place where it just doesn't match up. So, and really important too, I think, to not define your success. And this is a hard one for us, I think, particularly those of us that have trained as lawyers, not to define your success based upon what your peers have done.
Yeah.
Because all of you have done something quite different from what your peers did. So, really, really important to kind of jump off there. So just some wonderful points of advice there, Rose. Christine, I want to ask you a quick question. And as I say, it is a quick question, quite literally, but the sort of stuff that we've been talking about, do you think there's enough info out there for law students at the moment to be able to think about these things, not necessarily make a determination, but at least think about these things and know what options are available?
Yeah, the short answer is no.
Okay, that was short.
No, I definitely don't think there is enough information out there, and that's why I'm so passionate about Bottle, is where we want to not only raise awareness about these different career pathways and increase the dialogue about it, but also give students tangible, practical opportunities to, I guess, trial it out for a bit, you know, have a go, enroll in one of our 12-week clinics and see if it fits you, or maybe in one of our 4 to 6 week competitions and pop-ups to just see if it is something that you're actually interested in. But yeah, I definitely think there isn't enough information out there. And even when, you know, law faculties or student groups, they run seminars about this, it's kind of very generically, arbitrarily packaged as an alternative career pathway, and they'll maybe have one speaker talking about it, but then another, I don't know, in-house speaker, another politics person coming in, and it's very generic, and it's very difficult to get in-depth information about what these careers are like. So that's why I think seminars like this one are super important. So I would definitely recommend to look at more of the CLI stuff as well. I haven't been paid to say that, but
no, that's right.
CLI is an amazing resource for me as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Very grateful for that. I wanted to ask you all of this question, and it kind of builds on what we've been saying. And it's almost like a question that goes, is it, you know, does the chicken come first or does the egg come first? So I want to ask it of all of you. You've gone through your aha moment. You've now kind of determined, you've gone through your pros and cons list. You're now kind of ready you think you're ready to take on a new role. What do? Do you start kind of collecting a whole bunch of qualifications? And I'm kind of picking up a question that we've got here as well. Do you start collecting a whole bunch of qualifications, or should you try out the role first, or in your case, Rose, several roles in parallel? So, you know, because we could keep collecting qualifications for a very long time that may or may not qualify us for a role. So with that kind of in mind, and Matt, I want to throw this question first, if I may, to you. Do you collect the qualifications and then go into the role, or do you go with your strengths and get that alignment, go into the role, and then start working out where your skills gaps are?
My personal preference would be to try and dip my toe in the reality of that role in some way, shape, or form before, you know, materially investing financially and from a time perspective in education. Certainly, if there are qualifications that are a little bit more shorter or a bit of a sprint that are going to sort of give you some insights, then all for it. But I think a material investment in, you know, formal education without, you know, you think about the law degree that I practiced and the reality of practicing law were fundamentally different. You know, maybe if I had done for the practice bit first, would I have done my law degree? Maybe not. And that's, you know, 5 years, $50,000, it's not small on the time or financial scale. So I think getting the practical reality, and, you know, the conversation that Minnie and I had is another example of being able to do that. I was happy to speak honestly with her about my new law experience, and I think trying to get that practical insight that helps you to guide you down the pathway is probably the better place to start than jumping into qualification.
Absolutely. Minnie, I want to ask this question of you particularly as well, because I think that what we often see is a lot of focus on stacking up the tech qualifications. And I know what you do has a tech element to it. And, you know, to the extent of, should I learn to code? How many certifications and how many bots should I get? And the list continues. So with that in mind, and particularly in that area of tech, should folks be doing more in that area regardless, or how do you feel, or do you have any additional commentary in terms of what Matt has said?
Yeah, look, I have to say that So I'm in the part of our division that's called delivery service, advanced delivery service, and we're made up of different groups. And there is an entire tech division of Ashurst Advanced that really focuses on how better we can deliver legal service through innovation and technology. Now that's within, with our practice groups and with the firm at large, but also direct to clients. So creating software and apps that assist clients in the event that, they're rated by ASIC or a regulatory body, for instance, things like that. So that's really like a very nuanced way of dealing with a legal problem, right? And I think in order to provide that kind of service, you absolutely need to have experts leading that. But I think what's really incredible about that kind of opportunity in new law is that you don't necessarily, I don't think anyway, have to have an experience in IT or tech or development per se. I have a colleague who actually started here at Ashurst Advanced as a legal analyst, was a graduate, and started off in that sort of, I guess it's not an entry level role, but it's the equivalent of I guess a graduate in a practice group, and sort of thought, oh, you know what, law's not really for me, practicing's not really for me, but I've seen what digital is doing and I'm really into that. And slowly through a bit of a pathway program, started doing more of that. Now, without any sort of formal qualification in tech or in that sort of project delivery, is now a manager in that team. And so I think that just kind of goes to show that I think what's incredibly open-minded about new law is that sometimes that sort of that technical experience is not necessarily what will get you in the door.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's not to say that you don't continue developing your knowledge and your understanding and your tool house of things. Once you're there, that's how you progress, and that's how you sort of keep in tune with what's going on and what's changing and things like that. But I wouldn't I guess put it out there that you necessarily have to have all these qualifications in order to do the job. For me specifically, the role that I am in is as a practicing lawyer, and that's a unique role within this part of the division because it doesn't sit within any of the practice groups. I have a background in commercial litigation and disputes, and while that is some of the work that I do, it's not all of the work that I do. And you mentioned before, Terry, that my role sounds a little bit like a hybrid, and it is, because it is a practicing legal service, but it's also delivery management and project management and all those different things, and it's resourcing and it's legal tech and innovation and all these things that really come to the party to make sure that what we're doing is actually quality work and we're producing efficient or work efficiently, I should say. And I guess the analogy that I like to use, and it's a little bit sort of, I guess in the literature, I appreciate that, but traditionally lawyers are, you hear the L-shaped lawyer that is really immersed and deep in an area of practice. And I think new law and whatever it's going to look like in 5, 10, 20 years is really moving towards a T-shaped lawyer or an O-shaped lawyer, where while you have those specific skill sets and areas of practice and expertise, what defines you as a progressive lawyer is your ability to draw on and appreciate and understand how those different parts of the legal process come together in delivering quality work. Being able to sort of tap into those other elements, not just the, oh, here's your advice and here are some submissions, and that sort of advocacy or client contact. There's actually the business of law, and understanding that is what's going to shape good lawyers. And
Absolutely.
I think the starting point to that is really, I guess, being open-minded to that, open-minded understanding of that.
It's like the core capabilities in a way are shifting, But also, if you get really excited about some of those capabilities, there's now the option for you to be able to move those into a new law career. Because one of the things that's come through a lot during the summit is that many of the folks, if not most of them, that have gone into a new law career started life as a lawyer, as you did, and then have moved into something else. I want to wrap with a question for all of you, but before I do that, and really quick, Rose, I wanted to just touch on something that you said earlier, and that is about how one pursues, but also conceives their career. And we used to think of it as being linear. Now, you know, and you're a great example of this, which is why I'm asking you the question. You've got a whole bunch of stuff going on in parallel. It's not sequential, it's not linear. It's almost like a portfolio of things that you're bringing together that speak to your strengths. So do you see that in terms of how careers will evolve in law as being more what it looks like than, and I'm hoping you're going to say yes, than the linear career path? But, you know, I won't say
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm just happy it's come in vogue now. I was already doing this blindly. No, but I think that's why I feel very at home in the new law space because of that. And I just think that now that there are so many different opportunities and ways that you can navigate your career path, and there's space for everybody. There's space. We've all said we felt like that we weren't in the right place, or this square peg in a round hole. And now there are, the way that the industry is diversifying and expanding and evolving means that there's space for everybody, which is fantastic. In terms of how I think about my career, I just think about it in chapters. I think that was one chapter, and it's another chapter and another chapter. I'm at the beginning of a new chapter right now, but it's one that I actually thought would happen. Like I've always wanted to be in this space right now. It's taken me a while to figure out what my true passions are and where my strengths are. And but now I'm there. I've arrived. I love the professional development space. I love working with early career legal professionals. I know that there's a small, you know, little niche for me here, and I'm confident moving in there. So I just think about it in terms of chapters. And also, if there's anyone else out there that is thinking, you know, what do they want to do? Like, the stars really have to align for anyone to fall into the right job at the right time so early on in their career.
Yeah, I got to say that opportunities for me have never come at a convenient time.
Oh, exactly.
You know, you've just got to be willing to jump, right?
Yeah.
So folks, we've got just a few minutes left, but I really wanted to wrap with this question for all of you, and I'm going to go around all of you, and Matt, I'm going to start with you first, and that is, if you're thinking about where we started, you know, where do I start on my new law career, and you wanted to impart one kind of word of wisdom, what do you want to absolutely make sure that everyone takes away from the summit? You know, no pressure.
In one word might be hard, but
you can have three.
Oh God. Look, in one, bravery, I think, but just to build on that slightly, I think there's never been a better time to graduate, as you know, with a law degree and join the legal profession. The opportunities are boundless, and they're going to continue to grow. You've just got to be brave enough to, you know, take the right step and take a step. There's no such thing as the right step. You can't fail. Work hard, apply yourself, and it'll be fine. So
a heavy dose of optimism there too, I think, right? Fantastic.
Look, I think so. There is way more opportunity. Like I said, there was only really one definition of success. And, you know, if anything, this entire 10-session, 2-day series proves is that all of these things are things that did not exist or were not visible back when I left law. So that's, you know, I'm sure from the sessions everyone would have gained that that's only going to grow, and there's going to be more opportunities for current lawyers, you know, old and young, as well as people that will join the profession in the years to come.
And as we've said, or create your own path, right? That's the other option that's available to you too. Minnie, absolute thing that you want people to take away from the summit?
Be your own champion, I think.
Ooh, okay, that's a great one. That's
I completely agree with what Matt's saying. There has never been a better time to be a legal professional, and especially here in Queensland. And I think your ability to back yourself and know that the decision you make is right for you, regardless of what you hear, I think that will hold you in good stead.
Yeah, the best thing you can ignore is when people say no and seek to limit you and your opportunities by saying that. So yeah, fantastic.
Absolutely.
Rose, absolute key takeaway?
I have two.
Okay.
The number one is investment in yourself is the absolutely most valuable place you'll invest your time and resources, even if you don't know exactly how it will apply. If you're thinking about qualifying law or doing an LLM or career coaching or project management like qualification, and you're in a position to do it. I promise you will not regret it. The second one is actually picking up on something, a recurring theme from the first panel session of the summit. What is a new law career? There were panelists from Minter Ellison, Landra Rogers, HSF, and a couple of others, which I can't remember. They were all saying the same thing, that they need people. Yeah. They are retraining their own staff to fill these innovation and tech roles. And so that makes it a really exciting time for anyone at any stage of their careers to transition into this, particularly if you're at that 3 or 4 year mark and wondering, whether law is for you, as well as if you're just entering now. So the takeaway that I want everyone to take away from that is that have confidence when you're out networking and you're inviting people for coffee chats and applying for roles. Have confidence that you have got what they want, because they want you as much as you want them. And Absolutely. That is a powerful position to be in.
And that's been a recurring theme throughout, that there is a real need for talent. And I'm happy to share with you that the Centre for Legal Innovation started over a conversation. And so a lot can happen over a conversation or a coffee. Christine, the last word for the whole summit is yours. And I'm asking it specifically with respect to you being a law student. What's the one thing out of this that you want law students to take away from the summit?
I think if any law student takes anything away, it would be to not let the fact that you are a law student hold you back from starting your new law career. Like if I went with that approach, I think a lot of law students, unfortunately, we tend to think of ourselves as a second-rate lawyer or, a second-rate legal professional, and we're not fully there yet, and we have to get the degree first and be a practicing lawyer first, and then we can do something and contribute to change. But I think if you're really passionate about something, even if you're not passionate, if you just want to get involved, feel free to start now. Feel free to reach out to people. Feel free to start whatever initiative you want. If it fails, that's fine. You have the rest of your life to do something again and pick yourself up. So yeah, don't wait to finish your degree. Get started now.
Yeah. And I would have to say, I've always found this community incredibly generous with their time. And we've heard a great example and a story of that today. Bravo, Matt, by the way. But yeah, I mean, really do reach out and really do network. Folks, sadly, we've come to the end of the session, but I just wanted to thank you, Matt, Rose, Minnie, Christine. Really, really enjoyed the opportunity to work with you on this, and also obviously enjoyed tremendously your contribution to the session today as well. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you, everyone who has attended as well. This session will be available as a video and as a podcast. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, or you'd like to sit down and look at it with colleagues, please feel free to do so. If you'd like to receive updates about the release date, and obviously also about the work of the College of Law and the Centre for Legal Innovation, please do be sure to reach out to us on social media, particularly LinkedIn. And we've heard a big plug for LinkedIn today. It's an important resource. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. So with that being said, we are now at the end of our 2 days. Thank you for all of you for attending all of the sessions. And thank you again, panelists, for closing the summit out with such a fantastic session. Thank you very much. Bye.